Hello and welcome to the Kopala TV main news. We look straight at stories making headlines today. Kitwe City Council clarifies misinformation on demolition of houses in Kitwe's Mindolo North. Luyando community appeals to President Lungu. Gears initiative concerned with distribution of relief food in Kasama. And in international news, death of women in South Africa becomes a concern. Join us after this. To present the Kopala TV main news, my name is Monza Mwinga. The Kitwe City Council says it has noted with serious concern the misinformation carried by some social media reports to the effect that 650 houses in Mindolo North were razed down by Kitwe City Council officials. The council has clarified that this information is far from the truth and is complete misinterpretation of the facts by a named media house, saying the correct position is that the exercise was executed by the sheriff of the High Court under a court order. According to a statement issued by Kitwe City Council Public Relations Officer Nelly Kolongo, the background of the matter is that some years back Mopani Copper Mine applied to the High Court for summary possession of the farm 840 in Mindolo, Kitwe, from unknown squatters. She further said that the squatters could not vacate the land and the mine went back to the court to obtain a court order to demolish the structures. She said the sheriff of the High Court executed the order on Friday, 7th of August 2020. Still on the issue of structure demolition, the residents of Mindolo North's Luyando community are appealing to the Republican President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu to intervene in the land issue between Mopani Copper Mine and the community of Luyando. The community of Luyando on 7th August 2020 had their houses demolished in the middle of the night. Details are in the following.
This is Luyando community in Kitwe's Mindolo North. Luyando community has a population of about 10,000 people. The residents here are facing a greater enemy in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic and the already existing economic challenges. On the 7th of August 2020, the residents witnessed the greatest shock of their lives. In the middle of the night, their houses were demolished, leaving them homeless. And this is what they had to say.
Twachimona fima zembe na ba polisi abengi ukutira nefe tuingalanda mkwai twachifira nefe akuchita twachipona panshi twamba okudira twalira ifwe abana bachura tatukweta pa kuteka abana twafirishe niko bino tureranda ino kufuma mairo shirire bona ngufimo kumulando wachikongo twala kwisa abana
fimbi fipena fiona ikaifu mwamona ero ifwe tatubomba tuwaya fi mwamona ero nomba ifintu fitobeke fiona ike fingi iburoko difikire parishinga this time iburoko difikire 5 kwacha ambyama 6 kwacha ama blocks cement nishinga ifikire kwera ifocho turela nda kofe kwena obuteko bwesu ubwa PF ubwa pamaka watu afwe kofe kwena.
However, the PF Kitwe District Chair Lady couldn't hold herself as she comforted the affected families.
Tata nalila mtima wandi wakadipa tata ichicha chitikata chiweme abantu tuwomba na bena kwa baba shamitemwa tantu ifi ngabali tuchite ingenji ifwe ngechipani bacha lady turefu amwikale panshi na bamopani na baluyando tuchite sort out issue fili yako ngatwaliyeshelela notugwisa mukufika fye ku bantu ukwabula n'okutuchita inform ifwe ngechipani bafika fye bato bamayanda abantu batobera amayanda abantu besu ifwe ero mo especially bana mayo pali abali pabukulu pali abakwete tu baby iwe na umona omwana efye aleliroko wachumfwa shani tachile umfwikira apa inengo omufyashi chile umfwikira kwisa mumala mwatalala.
According to the chairman of Luyando and the area councillor, Luyando community have papers from the Ministry of Lands.
I am a papers mamona nkwete. My papers I have from the Ministry of Lands. While it still apply, Ilwempanga, Ministry of Lands ekoba tuchagile 30,000 kwacha bakweba ati impanga ingaba surveyed elo bakatupangire na site plan elo na number chonse fyali muri 30,000 kwacha. So amonga kabungu bakabalanda baledi pila mu instruments emulandu ine mwamwena ma receipts na afula sana baledi pila pano ilo twapushishye okulipira 30,000 kwacha yonse bali tupele ba surveyor ishina lyabo nibamusalula okufuma ku Ministry of Lands kunola.
And now the question is, could there have been another way of resolving this situation, unlike resorting to this? Anyway, we are awaiting the ongoing trial that is between Mopani Copper Mines and the community of Luyando. Diana Kafwala, Kopala TV News, Luyando, Kitwe.
And Association of Vendors and Marketeers, AVEMA, has also appealed to the head of state, His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu, to look into the matter of Luyando community and Mopani Copper Mines. AVEMA Zambia Kitwe District Chairperson Aston Sakala has told Kopala TV News that the association is very saddened because of what happened to the people of Luyando community.
We are not happy of what has happened to Luyando community. Luyando community affiliated our members to be given land. As an association, we are mourning because what has happened today. The land has been, the houses have been demolished, boxes and houses, and about 617 members of Luyando have been affected. It's a shame thing that an investor can come in and want to chase the Zambian, indigenous Zambian. If a marketeer who is vulnerable and intend to get a land, it's very difficult in Zambia, you know. And the Luyando community said, "Who help?" And they help us. And our marketeers, those that sells small things, tomatoes and what have you, they managed to put up the structures there, and the houses have been demolished. It's not a good thing.
In case you have just tuned in, you are watching the Kopala TV main news. Join us after this set of commercials.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena mumwesu Kopala. Kopala TV.
My number. Ishusho limentindeya za yama oji orushani. Kopala TV.
Yama oji. Imuntu wandi Yesu. Fwebene by fwebene. Fwebene. I did the kalasti. Yako Kopala futi yaba Kopala.
Manje kuikatashani yoina. Na ena ya kuntambo oro ni jiviji.
Wala iwe. Ile sango patopsta decoder. Channel 98 paku. Ninshi yatuvela. Puta mensa ninshi yalila ni efizimbwe. Kule izimoli la pemunjazi.
So yuri landati Kopala TV tayawanga ya boiling channel wako watu wachila tamba fe wino kwangwa filamba fyambo kupona uruwa mfotoro bantu ifuma channel wefingi fyamo pura fi.
Alula iwe Kopala TV ni Kopala futi eile kuchalo no ushali mokuba molasti elo ile sansa Kopala yonse my number ukwambila pepe my number pandula lwansha kito paketi ke mufudila mufukeni chingola pa chingo begi na chidila iwe ni Kopala TV eiliko.
Muntu wanja pakushongora fika top star we tatande tambera pofi Kopala TV pachani o 98 apa kude konkana ne charo bamba to bamba ni party after party. Whoa, party after party. Whoa, ha ha. Kopala TV, OG, yeah. Kopala TV, available on Topstar Channel 98. Kopala TV, entertainment just for you.
Looking for an opportunity to grow your business? Well, Kopala TV has good news for all small-scale businesses. You can now advertise on Kopala TV's Makwebo. Bonseba na mayo na bashtata. Iseni mulangishe amakwebo yenu pamutengo uachepa nga 100 kwacha. Yes, you heard right. For as low as 100 kwacha, your business will get its peak. Whatever the business, we will advertise. All you need to do is send a text of what your business offers, indicating the name, location, and contact details to the number below. Payment for the advertising spot can be made through MTN mobile money on the number down below. Makwebo, make your business known.
One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia chalo chesu. Stop political violence.
I am Zambian. I am against political violence.
I am Zambian, and I say disarm all cadres now.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
It's not good killing one another as Zambians. Stop the violence.
Let's keep the peace in our streets. Let's work to stay one Zambia.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
Ndimwina Zambia, lekeni ukulwa pamulandu wa politics. Welcome back. ZESCO Limited has said there is a loss of 130 megawatts of power from the national grid owing to a technical failure of one unit. The deficit implies that there may be variations in adherence to the current load shedding hours until the situation is normalized. In a statement issued by ZESCO Public Relations Officer Hazel Zulu, ZESCO has assured its customers that the corporation is working round the clock to assess the impact of the deficit and will ensure that customers and the general public are kept informed on the implications of this development on the current load shedding schedule. Governance, Elections, Advocacy and Research Service Gears Initiative says it is concerned with distribution of relief food in Kasama and COVID-19 items in Mwansabombwe ahead of the parliamentary by-elections in those constituencies. Gears Initiative Zambia Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi says recent directive by the Minister of the Office of the President, Oli Papiri, to Kasama District Disaster Management Committee, KDMC, to urgently distribute relief food to the district, which houses the vacant Lukasha parliamentary seat, is a pure electoral blackmail and campaign gimmick. Mr. Chipenzi says it is amazing how the minister has only realized the hunger situation in the area now after the death of the MP, when she never paid any attention before the vacancy was created.
Gears Initiative is very much concerned with the pre-campaign period, electoral malpractices, corruption and irregularities, vote buying and blackmail that characterizes our electoral process without censure or indeed recourse. This, if not well managed, is a source of conflict in the electoral process and can also trigger violence during the campaigns. It is important to note that a clean, fair and free elections requires that the law enforcement agencies or indeed institutions mandated to administer and conduct elections become aware of some of the factors that trigger electoral misunderstandings.
The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, has said that the coronavirus pandemic has continued to trigger a massive spike of uncertainty in Zambia. The JCTR Basic Needs and Nutrition Basket, BNB, of the month of July 2020 stood at 7,204 kwacha, 24 ngwe, a total increase of 143 kwacha, 44 ngwe from the June 2020 basket, which stood at 7,060 kwacha, 18 ngwe. JCTR Acting Program Manager for Social and Economic Development, Muchimba Siamachoga, said the recently announced COVID-19 emergency social transfer package is a prudent, timely intervention that needs to be scaled up beyond the targeted beneficiaries of the cash transfer database.
Noted that the pandemic has continued to trigger a massive spike of uncertainty in Zambia. So as at Wednesday, 5th August, the country had recorded a total number of over 7,000 cumulative cases. And even though the recovery rates remain high, the recent increased death toll attributed to the virus has continued to raise concerns over some of the strategies that have been employed to combat this pandemic. As a matter of fact, what we have noted is that there has been a relaxation in terms of adherence to the safety guidelines and measures. And this has been exhibited by both authorities as well as individuals, or I could call them the wider citizenry. So when we look at the economic spectrum of the country, what we do note is that it has not been spared from this particular wave, and this was touched on earlier on. We're looking at declining economic growth. And we also know that the Ministry of Finance has come on board and made this information public, and that is simply stating that from the initial projected growth of about 3%, Zambia is expected to now grow at a negative growth rate of around -4.2%. And this remains of concern actually to the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, because what we are saying is that this uncertainty is going to perpetuate income inequalities, and particularly for the poor households, the vulnerable people. What we are saying, the option to afford nutrition, the option to afford basic necessities that can maintain human dignity will therefore be compounded. So the JCTR Basic Needs and Nutrition Basket for the month of July 2020 stood at 7,204 kwacha, 0.24. So what we have noted is a total increase of 143 kwacha, 0.44 ngwe, from the June basket that stood at 7,060 kwacha, 0.18 ngwe.
In case you are just tuning in, you are watching the Kopala TV main news. Please join us after this set of commercials.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena buena mumwesu Kopala. Nubante mwekele chalo na tuikwatira Kopala TV.
My number. Ishusho limentindeya za yama oji orushani. Kopala TV.
Yama oji. Imuntu wandi Yesu. Fwebene by fwebene. Fwebene. Naidede kalasti. Iyako Kopala futi yaba Kopala.
Manje kuikatashani yoinai. Na ena ya kuntambo oro ni jiviji.
Wala iwe. Ile sango patopsta decoder channel 98 paku. Ninshi yatubira puta mensa ninshi yalila ni efidimbwi. Kule izimoli la femunjazi.
So yuri landati Kopala TV tayabanga ya maboiling channel wako watu wachila tamba fe wino kwangwa filamba fyambo kupona uruwa mfotoro pantu ifuma chane wefingi fyamo pura fi
alula iwe Kopala TV ni Kopala futhi kuchalo no ushali mokuba molasti elo ile sansa Kopala yonse my number ukwambila pepe my number pandula lwansha kito paketi ke mufudila mufuken chingola pa chingo begi na chidila bombo iwe ni Kopala TV liko
muntu wanja pakushongora fika top star wetata ndetambira pofi Kopala TV pachani o 98 apa kude konkana ne charo bamba to bamba ni pate after pate wo pate after pate wo Kopala TV OG. Kopala TV, available on Topstar Channel 98. Kopala TV, entertainment just for you.
Looking for an opportunity to grow your business? Well, Kopala TV has good news for all small-scale businesses. You can now advertise on Kopala TV's Makwebo. Bonseba na mayo na bashtata. Iseni mulangishe amakwebo yenu pamutengo uachepa nga 100 kwacha. Yes, you heard right. For as low as 100 kwacha, your business will get its peak. Whatever the business, we will advertise. All you need to do is send a text of what your business offers, indicating the name, location, and contact details to the number below. Payment for the advertising spot can be made through MTN mobile money on the number down below. Makwebo, make your business known.
One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia chalo chesu. Stop political violence.
I am Zambian. I am against political violence.
I am Zambian, and I say disarm all cadres now.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
It's not good killing one another as Zambians. Stop the violence.
Let's keep the peace in our streets. Let's work to stay one Zambia.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
Ndimwina Zambia, lekeni ukulwa pamulandu wa politics. Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned. We move straight into foreign news. The death of women in South Africa has become a concern as every 3 hours a woman is killed there. Gender-based violence is a huge problem and the government is working on legislation to end it. But activists say change is not happening fast enough and is still a long way off. We monitored Al Jazeera for this report.
This small group outside the Roodepoort Magistrates Court in Johannesburg is trying to bring attention to what is being called a pandemic. They're protesting against gender-based violence in a country where government statistics say a woman is killed every 3 hours. In court, the family of Juliet Dakada waits for the appearance on camera of 2 men accused of her rape and murder, as well as the rape of her 21-year-old granddaughter.
With this sliding gate.
Her son Mpo shows us where, just weeks ago, he says the accused men broke into her home. Her portrait looks over the room where she was raped, stabbed, and later died.
I didn't expect that my mother would pass away in such a brutal way. It just made me lose hope in mankind. I mean, how does one attack a female and go to an extent of murdering her in her own home?
In the last year, 2,695 women were murdered in South Africa. That's slightly down from the year before, but still a big number. After the rape and murder of Julia Dakata, 3 other homes were attacked in just 48 hours in this block alone. In one of the other break-ins, an elderly woman was assaulted and seriously injured. People here say that only women and children live in the homes that were targeted. With close to 100,000 followers on Twitter, Nomboniso Gasa is a well-known gender activist with strong views. She's often come under attack, even threatened with rape.
So it shows, it's a reminder of what happens out there. It's a reminder that gender-based violence is with us everywhere. It can flip just like that.
The South African government is working on new laws to help protect women, including harsher sentences for perpetrators and stricter bail conditions. But there are some who say more needs to be done to understand the rate of violence.
It's too easy to say it's apartheid and colonialism. Obviously, they play a role, but what is that role? How does it interact with the present? How does it shift it? You know, when there are changes in the economy, what is the impact of that history with the now and the present?
As this family mourns and struggles with their loss, they say there's no acceptable explanation for the rape and murder of their mother. Famida Miller, Al Jazeera, Johannesburg.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets of the Lebanese capital, Beirut, voicing anger at the country's leaders after this week's explosion in the port area of the city. Protesters occupied the foreign ministry building and declared that it was the seat of the revolution. Riot police fired tear gas at some demonstrators who were throwing stones. Gunfire was heard coming from the city's central Mataya Square. The country's prime minister has called for early elections. The explosion in the port was caused by a huge supply of ammonium nitrate which had been stored there despite warnings of the danger. At least 158 people were killed and more than 300,000 were left homeless. We monitored the BBC for this report.
This is Lebanon's rage against the elite. Here's what they think of their politicians. And as they passed through their city's destroyed streets, the protesters' anger grew. They called the names of the 160 people killed by this week's explosion. Among them, 43 Syrians and the wife of the Dutch ambassador to Lebanon. They carried pictures of the dead. Thousands more are injured.
The Lebanese have long been angry with their government, but now there is a new fury here on the streets. Not a single government official has resigned following the disaster at the nearby port.
In a city still reeling from the shock of the blast, their government unleashed its own force.
The protests have barely started and already there's tear gas coming in here from all sides.
We're rebels, free men, said this man. They fired directly at us. The protesters breached a number of government buildings. There were reports of rubber bullets being fired too. These weren't just hardcore protesters. Lebanese of all walks of life joined the demo too. Among them, Rula Stefan. Earlier she showed us her destroyed apartment. The family's business was in the port too.
Everyone is to blame for where we are today, for losing our money, for losing our jobs, for losing our businesses, for losing our homes, for losing our loved ones, our friends, everything. They are all to be blamed. They are all to be hanged.
Finally, in foreign news and still on Beirut, the calls for complete political reform in Lebanon are growing louder after the Beirut port explosion that killed 158 people on Tuesday. Lebanon Information Minister has become the first senior member of the government to resign since it happened. Manel Abdel Samad says there is little hope for change. 6 MPs have now resigned, and the most powerful Christian leader, Maronite Patriarch Bashar Batros Al-Rai, is urging the whole cabinet to resign. We monitored Al Jazeera once again.
This is the point of no return. People are starving. The economy is deteriorated. The economic crisis is heightening. Our families, children, friends have just been left behind. Fear and disappointment lives within them. In this fateful moment, we cannot just sit behind. We have to stand in dignity together as a nation. I feel that I need to send an apology to the Lebanese people because we failed to achieve their ambitions due to the difficulties. I have worked with my colleagues in the cabinet according to the directions of the Prime Minister, who is following all the details with a lot of wisdom in order to respond to the demands of the people. But no way does the reality go parallel with the ambitions after the Beirut earthquake that has shaken the nation. And due to the displaced, the martyrs, those who are still hungry, I respect all of this and I submit my resignation to the government, and I wish all the best to Lebanon in stability and unity. Long live Lebanon.
And Zaina, what strength do those words by the Christian Maronite patriarch hold for the government to resign if it can't help Lebanon?
the Maronite Patriarch is an influential figure in Lebanon. In fact, he has been leading a campaign trying to convince the government the best way forward is to resign, the best way forward is to disassociate Lebanon from regional conflicts. So the Maronite Patriarch is considered to be part of the opposition camp. They believe the ruling governing alliance, which is led by Hezbollah, a group that doesn't hide its links with Iran, they believe that Hezbollah is responsible for Lebanon's isolation because it has fighters in Syria and across the Middle East. And they believe it is because of Hezbollah's policies in the region that led to Lebanon's isolation. Hezbollah is under US sanctions. The Gulf Arabs also call it a terrorist organization. So what he's trying to say is that Lebanon needs to go back to its traditional allies, the West, the Arab world, countries that used to support this country. Because currently, the government is considered belonging to the Iranian-Syrian axis in the region. And ever since Hassan Diab took office in January, it has been isolated. No Western or Arab country visited the government or welcomed the government. So the Maronite Patriarch, undoubtedly influential, his voice will be heard in the West, no doubt, and among many people in Lebanon as well.
And Zaina, the streets behind you, they're looking calm in stark contrast to yesterday's street battles. What do we know of more protests perhaps later today?
Some activists are talking about the possibility of further protests. You talked about last night running battles in the streets of Beirut. We've seen scenes like that in recent months, ever since a protest movement began in October demanding a new leadership. But yesterday, the anger was very palpable. People demanding justice, revenge. For them, it's just not enough for a new leadership. What they want is those in power to be held accountable for Tuesday's blast. They believe negligence, incompetence, corruption. That is why thousands of tons of explosive material was stored at Beirut port for years, and nobody did anything about it. And the Beirut port is located in a city, in a densely populated city. So people are demanding justice. They want an independent investigation. They don't believe the government-led inquiry into the disaster will give the required results. They believe that there will be some sort of a cover-up. That's the feeling in the streets. So let's have a look at the scenes yesterday in central Beirut.
And that foreign item brings us to the end of this edition of the Kopala TV main news. But before we go, we take a recap at stories making headlines. Kitwe City Council clarifies misinformation on the demolition of houses in Kitwe's Mindolo North. Luyando community appeals to President Lungu. Gears initiative concerned with distribution of relief food in Kasama. And in foreign news, death of women in South Africa becomes a concern. Thank you for watching this edition. My name is Monza Mwinga, and stay tuned.